So a couple weeks back, I'm sitting in a middle school art classroom for back to school night. It's my daughter's, Lucy's, first year at her new middle school. And we've all been in one of these rooms before, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, walls plastered with student artwork that looks like it was made by kids who are probably now in college, or in some cases, let's be honest, going through their first divorce. The teacher admits as much. He shrugs and says, look, this stuff on the wall that gets left behind, no one hangs their best work on the classroom wall. This is B tier at best. And he's right. You can see it in the pieces. Some of it, though, is actually pretty good, especially when you remember that 11 or 12-year-olds made it. There's careful shading exercises, portraits built with grids and color wheels tacked up like road maps, mixed in with charcoal drawings of hot Cheeto bags and Fortnite characters and anime eyes just staring down at you from the wall. It's typical weird middle school shit. It's half pop culture obsession, half technical exercise, but all of it earnest in a way that only a middle school kid can get away with. Again, it's not bad. Some of it's pretty impressive, but it's not the kind of work that's gonna stop you in your tracks and you're gonna wanna go look at it. It's practice, it's process. It's a gallery of stepping stones. The place has a faint smell of acrylic paint and pencil shavings. And this is where ambition gets taped to the wall and forgotten as soon as the bell rings. The teacher is a guy, maybe in his late 40s, early 50s, and right away you can tell this guy gives a damn. He's not phoning it in, He's laying out what the kids are going to learn this year, how to draw with the grid, how to build a face with proper proportions, how to shade an object so it actually looks like it has weight, how to use color theory without turning everything into a muddy mess. The guy's a craftsman, is all I'm saying. He's a lifer, and you can see it in the pride on his face as he talks about teaching kids the difference between slapping paint on paper and really seeing what's in front of them. And then, almost as an aside, he says something that catches me off guard, that forces my attention up from my iPhone. The most common question I hear, he says, is it good? Every single day, multiple times a day. Is my drawing good? Is my painting good? Is this good? And I'm sitting there thinking, here's my first thought, honestly. Holy shit. I'm supposed to be the seasoned professional in the room as a professional artist, right? Seasoned. I'm a professional photographer and designer, and I dabble in writing and now a podcaster, weirdly enough, whatever label you want to throw at me this week. And I'm still asking the same goddamn question. I've asked it to my peers, to clients, to bosses back when I had bosses. I've asked it to my wife. She gets it more than anyone. And these days I've gotten more sophisticated and sly about it, sure. I check those likes on Instagram, all those analytics. I scan the room and people's faces when I present some work. I study the flicker in a client's face when they see the screen when I'm shooting on set. But it's that same desperate question that 6-year-old with paint on her fingers is asking her teacher. Is it good? And when did we learn to distrust the thing that made us create art in the first place? Developmental psychologists will tell you it happens right around the time the ego wakes up. A 4-year-old will draw a picture with a purple sky without a second thought. And they're not performing, they're expressing. But by 7 or 8, kids realize that they're being watched, graded, compared. There's a developmental psychologist, Susan Harter, who spent decades studying how kids see themselves. And she found that right around the age 7 or 8, something flips. She calls it the shift in self-concept, the moment when we stop creating for the sheer joy of it and start creating for approval. And once that happens, the question, is it good, moves into our psyche and never leaves. There's a Harvard researcher, Teresa Amabile, has shown that the more external evaluation enters the room, enters the creative process with grades and competitions and likes and other analytics, the less original the artwork becomes. The creativity narrows. We make safer choices. We learn that good isn't what feels true. Good is what earns approval, which makes me wonder, maybe the real tragedy isn't that we've ever doubted ourselves. Maybe it's that we were taught to measure our art by someone else's yardstick in the first place. That's the question that I've been thinking about ever since I sat in Lucy's art classroom. Not just as a dad, but as a photographer and designer and overall creative human who's still addicted to hearing someone say, yeah, that's good. That's good. My name is Patrick Four. This is the Terrible Photographer Podcast, where we have honest conversations about creativity, identity, and finding your own voice. And today's episode, I'm so happy, friends. We've made it to number 25. Didn't think it was possible, but here we are. I'm calling it, Is It Good? And hey, if you are new here, I just want to speak to you just for a minute or so. I just really wanted to say welcome. You probably saw the name of this podcast or episode, and you're like, what the hell is this about? Basically, here's the short version. This is not a podcast that will teach you business hacks for 2025. I'm not here to sell you a funnel strategy or convince you to optimize your hashtags. And it's definitely not about gear reviews or Lightroom presets. We do things a little bit different here. We like to go deep. We talk about what it actually feels like to make meaningful work while also trying to pay the bills. We get into this messy, painful, but sometimes hilarious truth of trying to be creative for a living, because being a photographer is both deadly serious and completely ridiculous at the same time. And if you're not a photographer, no worries. The tent is big. The party never ends, right? We are all creative humans. I strongly believe that. So whether you're a writer or you're a teacher or you're a designer or a parent or a CFO, it doesn't matter. As long as you're not an ICE agent. Sometimes I get political. Truthfully, because deep down, we're all here after the same thing. We try to lead meaningful lives, to solve interesting problems, and really to create beautiful things. So if you want a taste of what this show is about, I always suggest that people go back and listen to episode 5. It's one of my favorites. It's called Still Here. I love that one to death. Also episode 19, one I did recently, called The Job I Hate the Least. It's pretty ridiculous. Or even one I did recently too, called episode 17, The Technician, where I talk about identity and what happens when you realize that your career isn't the same thing as your voice. So that's the range, right? We got sometimes light, sometimes heavy, but always honest. All right, guys, let's get back to it. Okay, so back to my story. And at one point that night, the teacher actually flips it around on us, the parents. We're sitting there in this art room, and he asks all of us to question, how do we determine art's value. And of course, there's always this overachieving parent in the front row. His arm is already in the air before he even ends the question. Like he's auditioning for extra credit. And I muttered something under my breath, which might have been a little bit too loud from the back of the classroom where I always sit. Yeah, I was that kid. And the art teacher catches it and gives me this quick chuckle, like we're in on the same joke. And he says, yes, he calls on the guy with the arm in his hand. He's the only one in the room that raised his hand. And he says this, he goes, society determines the value. Puffed up, this pride, like he's heard it somewhere, probably on a podcast like this. You're right, the teacher says. And I think he is right. But I think that's the problem, right? Because when kids ask, is it good? What they're really asking is, how will this be judged? And we never stop. We just swap out the yardsticks. The grade book becomes the Instagram likes, which turns into portfolio reviews, which turns into ad agency briefs, which turns into dollar amounts on an invoice. And that's where it gets a little dangerous, because once you start assigning value, you start bending your work toward wherever you think the value comes from. You make what you know will sell. You follow the metrics. You take the projects that feel safe instead of the ones that scare you a little. You shave off honesty and vulnerability and risk because those things don't always pay. Okay, Act 1, the professional version of Is It Good? So the kids in Lucy's class ask their teacher, is it good? But I ask the same thing essentially on every single shoot that I'm at, only I'm not saying it out loud. So last year I was on a shoot in Los Angeles. I was shooting on an LED volume, which if you've never seen one, it's basically like an aircraft hangar lined wall to wall, ceiling to ceiling with digital panels. It's where reality doesn't exist until somebody renders it on a computer first. And if you've ever seen The Mandalorian, you've seen it. The Batman used it too. It's the film industry's new miracle drug. You want a desert at sunrise? Mojave maybe? Boom. Click of a button. How about a galaxy spinning overhead? Or Tokyo downtown at midnight? Not a problem. Not a problem. Just load the file. There's no flights. There's no permits. There's no waiting on weather. And if you step inside one of these places, it really is like walking into Photoshop with the opacity and clarity turned up. The walls shimmer, the air hums, and everyone around you pretends that this is completely normal to work inside of a $200 million video game. It's complete with craft services table, with all the Costco granola bars and beef sticks you could ever want. And that day, I was crammed in the back seat of this new electric Mercedes parked dead center in this hangar. And I was tethered to my digital tech's workstation across the car. And if you don't know what a digital tech is, so I've been told in these podcasts that I don't really explain these insider terms. So I'm going to try to do that from now on. So a digital tech is someone that receives the files from the photographer. So on my camera, there's a USB cable that goes to his computer, and he has some fancy monitors, and the client or me or my team or his team, we can all see the files as they come in from my camera. It really is pretty useful. And so everyone is crammed around, the clients are all crammed around the Digitech's workstation, all looking at my work. And I'm crammed in the back of this Mercedes, and my attention is split. Half of my attention is completely engaged with and focused on getting the shot. It is with the talent. I'm coaching, I'm telling jokes, I'm directing them, going great. The other half of my attention, though, is with the clients on the outside of their car. And I couldn't see their faces, but I could hear the verdict in their voices almost. A laugh, a murmur, the sharp inhale, the comments. That really is the currency on set. It's the Morse code that tells you if you're about to be the hero or the guy that just torched 50 grand of someone else's marketing budget. And then it came, the approval. Their voices lit up. I remember I'm sitting in this car and it hit me like a narcotic. One of the lead people on the client team says, "That's it, we got it." And that warm rush, the tingling spine, the brain fuzz that tells you that you've done something right, that you're safe for now. That really is the professional version of, is it good? It's not kids showing a crayon drawing to a teacher. It's thousands of dollars. It's your reputation, your next job, all hanging in the balance while you sit in a fake world built out of LED panels listening for approval like it's goddamn oxygen. Because in that moment, there's nothing else that matters. Is it good? That's the only question that counts when there's thousands and thousands of dollars that is not your money on the line, and your reputation is hanging in the crosshairs. Good is really the bare fucking minimum. Great is nice, phenomenal is better, but if it isn't good, what are we even doing here? And the death words, the ones that feel like a swift punch to the kidneys, is this. Yeah, it's okay, I guess, that'll work. Fuck that. Give me freedom or give me death. 5 stars or nothing. But here's the reality. When you're a professional, you don't get to give yourself 5 stars. That validation, that approval, that little attaboy, it comes from the people who sign the check, the one who can make or break you. That's the professional version of the 6-year-old asking the art teacher, is it good? It's the same desperate question. The stakes just got a whole lot higher. Act 2, the safety prison, or let's talk about Gordon Parks. Gordon Parks came out of Kansas with nothing but a pawn shop camera and a hunger. He was self-taught, self-willed. He had no pedigree, but he didn't have permission either. And by the 1940s, he had fought his way into Vogue, shooting fashion spreads that were immaculate, with clean lighting and elegant poses, crisp compositions. These were stunning images. And here's the thing about Parks. That work absolutely mattered. It was noble, it was dignified, it was acceptable. Parks was one of the first Black photographers to do work for Vogue at that level. And every perfectly lit shot was a statement unto itself. And safe work can be beautiful. Safe work can be important. It takes skill, it takes discipline, it takes a mastery of the craft. But Parks, however, didn't stop there. He turned his lens towards the part of America that didn't want to be seen. He photographed American Gothic of Ella Watson, a Black cleaning woman in Washington, D.C., mop and broom in hand, posed in front of the American flag. It was a direct punch to the gut of the American dream. He photographed segregated schools, Harlem apartments, police brutality. He made portraits of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and Eldridge Cleaver. Work that risked rejection, work that made people pissed off, but it was work that absolutely told the truth. And that's the contrast, because on one side, you have fashion spreads, editorial polish, commercial perfection, work that proves that photography can absolutely be noble profession, even beautiful. while on the other hand, it was documentary fire. It was work that made enemies. It stirred controversy and changed how a nation saw itself. And the truth is, both sides of his work mattered, because without the Vogue spreads, Parks might not ever have had access or platform to make those photographs to rewrite history. Without the dangerous work, he might have been remembered as just another technically brilliant fashion photographer. It was that balance, the ability to master safe while still stepping firmly inside of truth, that made him Gordon Parks. Now, here's where it hits home for the rest of us. Most photographers, like you and me, aren't Gordon Parks. Most of us make our living shooting weddings or commercial campaigns or family portraits or headshots. It's all safe work. It's all good work. It's all noble work. You capture someone's wedding day so their kids or their grandkids will know what joy looked like in their family. You shoot a brand campaign so that you help a business survive another quarter. You take a family photo that becomes an image that lives on a mantle for the next 30 years, and that work matters. But then there's the other question. It's the itch that you can't ignore if you've got it. What's the work that you would make if you weren't chasing approval or clients or likes or money? What's the work that might scare you a little or embarrass you, but would feel undeniably yours? Because photography can be more than noble, more than professional, more than good, if you're willing to step into that dangerous space. Photography can be the thing that cracks people open and leaves some scars. Yes, safe is survival, but truth, though, is legacy. And every one of us has to decide if we are content with safe or if we're willing to risk stepping into something bigger. And that's the tension every photographer I know lives inside. Safe work is noble. Safe work is necessary. Safe work gets you paid. But the truth is risky. It's vulnerable. It's honest kind of truth. It's what makes work unforgettable. And here's the kicker. This isn't a new problem. This didn't come around with the rise of Instagram. We didn't invent this conflict with client briefs. 100 years ago, Leo Tolstoy was asking the same questions in his book, What is Art? Now, Tolstoy wasn't some armchair critic. By the time he wrote the book, he was Leo freaking Tolstoy, the guy who gave us War and Peace and Anna Karenina. Tolstoy was one of the most celebrated novelists of all time. He could have coasted on his literary fame, cashing checks, sipping tea. Instead, in his later years, he went full-on philosopher, obsessed with the purpose of life, morality, and whether art actually mattered. And his answer about art was brutal in its simplicity. Art is good if it sincerely communicates the feelings of the artist to another person. And that's it. Not technique, not polish, not whether it pleased elites or got glowing reviews. Tolstoy wrote this: "For a work to be art, it must be sincere. The artist must himself feel the emotion he transmits, and the receiver must feel that too. And if you fake it, it isn't art. If you mean it, it is." Think about that in the light of everything that we've already covered. The kids in Lucy's art class asking the question, is it good? The clients murmuring behind the monitor on that soundstage in Los Angeles, Gordon Parks walking that tightrope between stunning Vogue spreads and photographs that forced America to look at itself. Authority tells us art is good when it follows the rules, when it pleases the client, and when it looks like what already sells. But Tolstoy said the opposite. Art is only good when it transmits truth. And when you hear it, that's terrifying, because suddenly good isn't about approval or metrics or even survival. It's about whether you actually felt something when you made it. And that was true in Tolstoy's Russia a century ago, and it's still the fight we're in today. Okay, so I need to tell you something. I recorded the introduction and then Act 1 and then Act 2, and then there was an Act 3, and honestly, I'm a bit full of shit. So I am re-recording the ending. I just rewrote these words that you're about to hear like 10 minutes ago, fueled by whiskey a client gave me and this internal angst that I'm feeling right now. I mean, look, here I am explaining this to you like I've cracked some code, which I haven't. Like I'm the authority on why you shouldn't trust authority. Do you hear how fucked up that is? Like I'm literally performing expertise about the dangers of performing for approval. And I just spent 26 minutes-ish telling you about kids asking, is it good? And then built this entire episode hoping you'll think it is. What? Good? Smart? Worth sharing? I'm like checking my phone right now, wondering if this will get downloads, if it'll resonate, if people will think I'm insightful. I mean, I even brought Tolstoy into this because apparently I still need a dead Russian novelist to validate my point about trusting your own creative instincts. Why do I need intellectual backup anyway? Why can't I just trust that you will recognize truth when you hear it? But you know what? Fuck Tolstoy. Not because he's wrong, he's probably right, but because I just used him as this creative authority to tell you not to trust creative authority. And truth be told, because we're all into honesty here, right? I only brought up Tolstoy so you would think I was smart. Man, that's some next level bullshit right there. So here's what I actually know without the Russian literature degree. I'm still asking the same questions as that 6-year-old in art class. I'm just doing better at disguising it. That's the whole point. This whole episode, it's me asking if my insights are good enough, if my voice matters, if I'm worth listening to. And maybe that's this whole point. Maybe we're all still asking. Maybe the goal isn't to stop asking. Maybe it's to ask better questions. Not is it good enough for them, but is it true enough for me? Which brings me to the new Act 3, which I'm calling the new authorities. Look, again, the teacher gets replaced by the client gets replaced by the algorithm gets replaced by the influencers and market trends. And authority today isn't a red pen. It isn't like a button. It's a mood board someone copied from someone else's feed. It's a Pinterest board of cliched, passed around like gospel until nobody remembers where the original idea started. Authority teaches us to perform. Expression asks us to trust. And those two voices are almost never in harmony. And maybe the cruelest twist to this whole thing is that we don't even need authority to show the fuck up. We've internalized it. We've become our own gatekeepers. We scroll through our work like a jury of one asking, is it good enough to post? Will anybody care? Will this make me look relevant? We become the teacher, and we become the client. We become the algorithm, performing authority against ourselves until there's nothing left but a polished performance. And here's the paradox. For working photographers like us, good isn't just about validation. It's about survival. Look, I understand. Safe work buys food. It pays rent. It funds the braces and the back to school clothes and keeps the lights on. That's really important. And listen, you cannot eat sincerity. You cannot pay the gas bill for punk rock truth telling. So what do we do with that tension? How do you live in a world where being relevant and marketable and algorithm approved pays your bills, but being true to yourself is the only thing that keeps you sane? That, my friends, is the razor's edge. And some of us bury that itch. I'm gonna be honest. A lot of us do. We double down on safe work. We ride the algorithm. We chase the trends and we hope it's enough. And for a lot of photographers, wedding shooters and family shooters and commercial shooters, it is. And that's the noble lane, right? We serve the client. We deliver the product. We keep food on the table. The work that might not sell, but might actually say something. The difference between a sterile, corporate, boring fucking headshot and the portrait that you take in an Amsterdam club with beer on the floor and weed smoke in the air, but real fucking humanity in the frame. That's the fight that Tolstoy was pointing to over a century ago. He said art is only good when it transmits truth. And here we are. We're trying to reconcile truth with invoices, rebellion with relevance, and sincerity with survival. We live in the middle. We balance safe with truth. And the only question left is, which one are you starving? Your body or your soul? Act 4, returning to the first voice. Okay, so where does this leave us? Look, we've all got bills to pay. We've got mouths to feed. And we've all got clients who don't give an absolute two shits about Tolstoy. They just want the files on time. So fine. Do the work. Do the safe work. Deliver the brand guidelines, the family formals, the glossy catalog spreads, but do it well. Do it professional. Do it on time. That's survival. That's the fucking job. But if that's all you do, friends, you're starving yourself. You're amputating the part of you that wanted to make the art in the first place. And this is where you go back to the first voice. Before the grades, before the likes, before the clients, before the paychecks, before the algorithm, the voice that said, what if I try this? What if I make this because it feels like me? And I know what you're thinking. Listen, Patrick, I'm just a wedding photographer in Denver. I'm just a stay-at-home mom in Dubuque, Iowa. I'm just a teacher in Phoenix. Bullshit. You are a human being with a perspective that no one else has. You have stories inside of you no algorithm can manufacture. The wedding photographer in Denver, sure, nail the shot of the first kiss. That's expected. But then go find something new. Go find the bride's dad alone in the hallway, wiping his eyes while no one's looking. That's the truth. That mom in Dubuque, take a photo of all the toys scattered on the floor, the chaos that no one else sees, but that's the truth. That's the essence of motherhood. The teacher in Phoenix, photograph the exhaustion in your students' eyes during that hellish testing week, or on the way that they light up when something finally clicks. That, my friends, is the truth. Because truth doesn't require a client brief. It doesn't require a lead form. It doesn't require permission. It just requires you deciding to point that fucking camera at something that feels like yours. And no, you don't have to burn down your career to do it. You don't have to stop doing safe work. Safe work and true work can live side by side. Safe work keeps you alive. True work keeps you human. Gordon Parks shot Vogue one day and turned around and made American Gothic the next. So stop asking the question, is it good? And start asking, does it feel like me? Would I make this if no one else saw it? Am I saying something that only I can say? Because the truth is, here's the truth, friends. No one cares if it's good. Good is wallpaper. Good belongs in dentist office lobbies. Good gets forgotten the second the tab is closed. But true is what lingers. True is what leaves some scars. True is what makes someone stop and feels a little less alone. Again, safe pays the bills. Truth is the only thing that you will leave behind. Okay, so we're gonna close. Take a breath. I think I need to take a breath. Here it is. Stop chasing good. Good is the velvet rope that keeps you obedient. Good is the waiting room, soft pop music of creativity. Good is what keeps the algorithm spoon feeding you while it wants you to be quiet and predictable and safe. I'm gonna say it. Fuck good. Make something true. Make something reckless. Make something so goddamn personal it scares you to show it. Make the thing that might get you laughed at, ignored, or told you're too much. Make something that makes people angry, because that's the work that maybe matters. That's the work that will outlive you. And let me tell you something. You don't need Tolstoy's approval, or you don't need your art teacher's approval. You don't need my approval. You don't need your family's approval, right? They don't know shit because they don't know you. They don't know the life that you've lived, the bruises that you've carried, the particular way that only you see the world. Because only you know that. And only you can make the work that carries it. So, again, I'm going to say it one more time. Make the safe jobs. Take the checks. Pay the rent. Fund the braces. But don't confuse survival with legacy. Don't confuse professional polish with a pulse. Because one day, I'm going to tell you this, friends, you might not want to hear it. One day, the client emails will stop, and the likes will vanish. The invoices will fade. The only question that will matter is, did I make something that was mine? That's the first voice. That's the only voice that ever mattered. So, go back to it. Trust it. Fight for it. Stay curious. Stay courageous. Stay terrible. Because terrible is where truth lives. And truth is the only thing worth leaving behind. And that is all you need.